Hey guys, it's Joey. So this video is going to be about the goddess Morrigan, self-healing and self-love, and it was a request. So before we get into all of that, apologies for the lights. We are working in English in English winter basically, and it's very gloomy and the light is not so great, so apologies. I don't have a green screen or any of that, so I can't afford that sort of thing, so sorry. But you get me in frame and pudding. So what more can you ask for, really? So this was a request, and I think it's a good video to really go forth and do first, because I'd actually been considering doing a few more videos around the subject anyway. Perhaps not quite this exact subject, but around it. So I think it's good to really look at self-love and healing work around this time of year, because following Christmas is like the worst time for depression and suicides, and it can be a really difficult time of year. So I was thinking of doing this anyway, because a good sort of video helping, if you like, on self-love and healing is a really good thing to do. And then to really sort of look at how one integrates that in a Morrigan path, following the goddess Morrigan in the Celtic tradition, is something that people do struggle with. And I tend to find there are two approaches to healing work and self-love work with regards to the Morrigan. It kind of follows the vein of the Compassion and Morrigan video, which is worth checking out if you haven't seen that. And the idea that Morrigan can't be compassionate, which simply is one of those sort of misnomers. It's not something that I agree with whatsoever, and unfortunately it has a lot to do with stereotyping. I'm going to zoom the camera in a little bit so when I sit back it's not so bad. There we go. So firstly, in terms of witchcraft and spiritual paths, I think that healing is a form of magic which is often overlooked and isn't given enough credence and isn't really highlighted enough, because perhaps it's not as flashy as the other ideas of magic, you know, love magic and hexing work and cursing work. These are all your very big buzzwords, and kind of healing work tends to get put to the side, and I think that's a shame, and it's a sort of side effect of over-sensationalization of witchcraft, because healing work and working on yourself is perhaps the underlying point of looking for a spiritual path to begin with. We all want to improve, we all want to be the best versions of us that we can be. We want to explore the mysteries, we want to understand the world around us, we want to connect with deity, we want to understand plant spirits and devas, we want to connect with crystals and all that sort of good stuff. And a lot of the sort of side, what would you call it, interests that go along with witchcraft are often health and healing orientated. A lot of herbalism can be taken on for the purpose of healing and self-cleansing and learning to eat better, and incorporate herbs and herbal remedies into your body in a number of ways. I mean, some of them are a little bit more perhaps cosmetic, and some of them are to do with healing, and some of them to do with energy work. And the same is true with crystals. You know, a lot of people look at crystals and crystal healing, and then you have like healing arts to do with the chakras and Reiki and all that sort of thing. And that's very much focused on a healing-based path. But quite frequently, people tend to sort of dismiss the arts of healing as, I don't know where this comes from. I wonder if this is a Hollywood thing, that it gets put into like the white witch category, and so it becomes a bit bland and becomes a bit boring and becomes a bit, oh well, and because of this sort of negative connotation that's given to healing, people look at goddesses such as the Morrigan, which perhaps they don't know in depth, and think, well, she's, you know, a dark goddess, so what's that got to do with this lighter, fluffier healing thing? And it's a shame, because to be honest, pretty much everything, you know, the whole idea of witchcraft is to better understand ourselves and our place in the world around us and the energies flowing through the world in simplistic terms. And how can we do that unless we are healing ourselves? And things such, you know, buzzwords that get thrown about, such as, you know, shadow work, is actually a form of deep healing. And people can probably see how shadow work is associated with darker goddesses, such as the goddess Morrigan. Oh, because, you know, she's a dark goddess and shadow work, dark work. Maybe that correlates a bit easier in the mind. And what it actually is, to me, the goddess Morrigan expects a lot from her sons and daughters, and she will put them through a lot and expects them to overcome it. And it's kind of a path of self-sacrifice, because you are sacrificing who you used to be and all the old parts of yourself, and you're pruning yourself and, you know, getting rid of the dead branches, if you like, and so that you can grow and so that you can become a better version of yourself. And that is a form of healing, that sort of shadow work, where you go through all the more difficult memories, emotions, responses and reactions to certain things in order to make yourself a better individual. And when you're truly going through shadow work, is a really complicated and probably very long, laborious process, which a lot of us engage with at this time of year, because it is still just about the dark half of the year. We're approaching Yule, and that brings into relief for me some interesting ideas about how I feel about the dark half of the year versus the light half of the year, and I may do a different video on that, thinking about it. Yeah, let's save that for a different video. So how does the Morrigan and self-love work? Well, there are two sort of lines of reasoning with this, with healing work. So one camp tends to say that, oh, you can do healing work with the Morrigan, but it's like rough. It's hard work. It's pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, deal with this. You are going to deal with this. You're going to sort it. You're going to fix it. Sort of very malady approach to healing. And I think this tends to be favoured with those who are kind of purist and kind of like focus only on the myth and the lore, and they don't like the expansion of the Morrigan into realms such as Avalon, which is the other side of the healing mythos, which we'll cover in a minute. Now for me, I think that this approach is really dependent on the individual, first and foremost, as well as the ailment in question. So I think this form of healing work can be really useful, and engaging with Morrigan in this fashion and getting her to really, you know, get you, her and you in one, and like pulling those bootstraps up to get something fixed. Now this can work in situations when your health is being affected by situations that you can change, and perhaps bad habits are preventing you from doing so. So weight-related issues is one of these. Now, I say that very, very hesitantly, and bear with me, because you need to be in the best state of health in order to fully engage with your spirituality. This is something I have trouble with, so before anybody gets upset, I am aware that, you know, weight loss is a whole conglomeration of different things, and a lot of it is not as simple. And if you've seen my other videos where I talk about, you know, weight bashing and things, where people are like, oh, it's as easy as just eating less and exercising, and it's not. And I can state this quite clearly from my own experiences. I've been going to the doctors recently, and I may have a medical complaint which has meant that I can't lose weight. or makes losing weight 100 times more difficult. So all my hard work and efforts and it's not really seeing results is this might be why. And that sort of goes in the face of those sort of people who are like, just eat less and exercise, it's not hard, in this sort of belittling nonsense that people say. However, if you know that certain things are your responsibility and they're getting in the way of you healing your body and you really need to get that push and that drive, then the hard, tough love version of healing is something that the Morrigan can bring to the fore. And if you're in a state where you basically need help and you must go get help and you're putting yourself at risk by not going and getting help, she might well bring this energy in anyway. And it may be something that you want to consider engaging with. Now that's through a reluctance rather than a full-on anxiety or depression. Now things such as anxiety, depression and emotional based illnesses are something that I would relegate to the other side of the healing chart, which is the Avalonic side, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So if there is a deep entrenched emotional response, an emotional difficulty, a depression, an anxiety, you know, that side of the emotional trauma, basically you're going through a trauma and you may well suffer, as I do, from depression or other such conditions. Now with the subject of healing, healing should always be done in conjunction with medicine. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can totally spiritually magic your way through certain ailments. And if you should be seeking help, advice and medicine, then that is something that you should be doing. I don't believe in completely dismissing the role of science and medicine within spirituality. I think that's a very dangerous route to go down. I think what I'm basically preaching here is common sense, and try and keep a balance of common sense about what you are healing and what you are doing spiritually and in terms of spell work, meditative journeying and things of that nature. And when you're bringing in certain elements into healing, such as, you know, your herbalism and your crystals and healing salts and bathing and all this sort of thing. So all that sort of energy work is something to definitely consider and engage in, but do not do it at the expense of modern medicine, because I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where it comes from that this divide has to be, you know, you have to be either spiritual or scientific. Why can you not be both? Why can you not allow for both in your life? I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people who should have got help and just put themselves into a worse and worse and worse position in the name of spirituality. And it's false spirituality because it's running from the real problem. And it's spirituality isn't about giving you an excuse not to be the best version you can be. It's not about giving you an excuse not to heal yourself. It's not about an excuse to blame everyone around you for what's going on with you, rather than, you know, look inside yourself and say, right, what is it that I need? And that is a huge form of self-love, which people often overlook, and is sort of accumulative with the tough love version of healing through the Morrigan. And that's very much about, you know, you owe it to yourself to do X, Y and Z, whether it be counselling in terms of, you know, depression and suffering through trauma, which often causes spiritual breakages within oneself, emotional tears within oneself, and requires healing. Now, you can and absolutely should, if you're following a spiritual path, then you can and you absolutely should engage in spiritual practices and witchcraft practices to heal yourself on an energetic and a physical level, where your knowledge permits up to, and learning and perhaps seeking out the help and advice of those who are further educated or perhaps qualified in spiritual realms of healing than you. That's someone you trust, basically, and you should absolutely seek that sort of healing out. And fine, but you know, it's not an excuse not to engage with doctors if you need to be seeing a doctor. It's not an excuse to perpetuate what's going on with you, because I've seen that a lot, and I think it's problematic within the spiritual realm. And certainly within the goddess Morrigan's realm, she wouldn't stand for that, because you're basically lying to yourself rather than seeking a truth out. And healing work and self-love work is a deep sense of truth, because you have to seriously look at what you're doing. Are you perpetuating the illness? Are you making it worse by doing X, Y, and Z? Is your diet needing to change? Is your energies levels off and you're sort of harming yourself that needs addressing in order to be able to heal? And the easiest way of looking at that mentality is how you are taking care of your physical self. You know, exercise and diet being two huge pillars of it. They're not the only pillars of it, like I said. You know, it's not the only cause of say weight gain and things that can lead to medical problems, and people suffer with all medical complaints which are tied to diet in all sorts of ways. You can have thyroid problems and that needs addressing and looking at, because that, you know, causes huge weight gain, and then diabetes and things can come off the back of it. And it's really about being true to yourself in all forms of, right, what can I do and what should I do and what can I do today and what change can I make in order to affect an outcome, which in itself is magic. It's seeking to affect the world around us, seeking to cause change, and this can be done in a whole host of ways. For me personally, I suffer with IBS, and this is triggered by high gluten products. And I had all the celiac tests just in case it was celiac disease and gluten intolerant, and they said it's not celiac disease, it's just that these things are triggering the IBS, and it might be something else involved as well now, which I shan't be discussing on camera. It's nobody's business. It's not serious, it just needs attention. So before anybody panics, I'm okay, I'm fine. But it means that I have to be hard on myself and stop myself eating stuff that I shouldn't be eating, and try and stick to a healthier diet, which I have been getting back to doing recently as a form of self-love and a form of healing. Now I've been going down the tougher route with that with myself, and just getting myself into a habit, because that's what works for me, is getting in the habit of it, overcoming the emotional problems, overcoming the emotional reactions. Sorry, that's me cracking the chair as I move on it, and sticking to it. It's like being a little bit tougher, asking the Morrigan to really help me with that, and dedicating any exercise I do to a Morrigan energy sort of offering, if you like. And I quite frequently do visualization while I'm doing exercise to the Morrigan as well, like visualize running through the woods with the Morrigan, for example, and that then means that it takes on a spiritual significance. It becomes a form of energy offering and self-approval and self-love. So on the other side of the healing work is the idea of Morgana Le Fay and Avalon, and the purists don't like it because, alright, you can't prove that the myths are a sort of degradation of the Morrigan and it's separate people, and now there are some people that feel very strongly that the Arthurian myths are likely monk versions, Christian versions of the Celtic myths. And there's certainly strong correlations and strong arguments to be made for this, but it's difficult to prove given that the Celtic lore was largely oracular, it was like spoken word, it wasn't written down. And they felt that writing it down basically took away from its magical potential. And And so some people don't like it. However, as a form of healing, if connecting to a Morrigan within this figurehead, this symbol, is something that resonates with you, is something you should go ahead and do. And I think it has a lot of merit. I think it's very interesting that, you know, the 9 Morgans of Avalon, could they have been 9 faces of the goddess Morrigan? Could it be tied up with her myth? I refuse to dismiss it out of hand based on what is still around, what myth that we still have written down. And I understand the arguments against it, but I think it is a beautiful energy which resonates very strongly in today's society, and I think it touches souls and lives in a very empathic almost way. And in the original tales of Morgana Le Fay, in one she was a healer. I mean, we know that the more bad girl image is the one that's more sensationalized in Hollywood and therefore more popular, but in the other one she was just a healer and a sorceress and controlled the elements. And I find that engaging with Avalon is a good way of looking to self-love and heal through a path associated with the goddess Morrigan. Now on this channel already we have the healing meditation of Avalon, Healing Waters of Avalon meditation. I will try and find that and try and link that in the down bar. That's already there, it already exists. And I have to say that I think that water as a conduit to healing is perhaps the most profound way of healing, and you can see it across cultures in the forms of going into waters and being cleansed and coming out brand new. So, you know, heavily Christianized association with water, which is almost magical when you sit there and think about it. But it's true in a lot of cultures, that the immersion of oneself in water is going into the realm of spirit and coming out a different person, coming out cleansed. And there's a lot of healing and self-love work that can be done within the realm of bringing the energies of Avalon. God damn it, Nadir! So we know what next video is going to be. It was going to be something else, but now it's going to be that. Right, okay. Oh, Nadia. I love you, lady, but... Hello! Right. Now I'm all in a flutter and forgot where I was. We're talking about the spiritual realm of water and the healing powers of Avalon. Right. Brain. Pudding's going to guard the box for a bit. Okay, you guard the box while I finish this video. Okay. So I think that the realm of Avalon can be a really wonderful spiritual connection to the realm of the goddess Morrigan as a healer. There's a really beautiful image that I have on my Facebook. And if you don't know, I have a Morrigan album of photographs and artwork and all this beautiful thing in like an online offering to the goddess Morrigan. And it's like an online presence, like an online altar, which I very much believe in is important in a digital age to have like an online space that you also sort of dedicate to your goddess. I think it's important to collect on a visual level. And I have a beautiful image of the goddess Morrigan, and I think she has white hair and she has like a green robe and like gems over, and there's a snake. And that's very Avalonic, very Morgana Le Fay in my mind. And it's absolutely almost imperative in my mind that one connects to this healing element of the Morrigan, particularly when one is suffering through a loss of self in whatever fashion. And this is something that deeply needs healing, and this can come about as a result of depression and anxiety and a loss of self-confidence and being a survivor of difficult life situations, which most of us who have been called by the goddess Morrigan have lived through difficult circumstances. And bringing Avalon to your space is a way of sort of creating a energy temple that you bring down to your temple, and that can be, you know, your ritual space, your altar, whatever. Even you can even do this in your bathroom and create like a little mini lake of Avalon, which is what I do when I use my healing salts of Avalon or my healing waters of Avalon spell oil, and I create like a lake in the bath, and you're bringing that energy down and you're submersing yourself in it and allowing it to pull all of the energy funk out of you. And you can do this alongside crystal work. You can take quartz in the bath. You know, quartz aren't going to be troublesome in the bath. You just get a little tiny quartz point, take it in the bath with you, just hang on to it. And you do all of that work, and you allow that to drain out of you, and you allow yourself to be immersed, submerged even, within this spiritual realm through which you become very interconnected to deity. The Celts believed that leaving offerings in water was like the thing to do. Basically, they would place offerings into water, and they believed this was a way of allowing them to pass through the realm of water into the realm of the gods, because water was a conduit between our world and the other world, the realm of the gods. And this is why, another reason why Avalonic myth is associated, okay camera, thanks for that, is associated with the goddess Morrigan, because of the sword in the lake mythos. It's offering swords to the goddess Morrigan through water is very likely in Celtic mythos. Just to, you know, tweak around with some of the mythos. It's not the focus of this video, and it's just suggestions on how to self-heal and self-love. Another thing that I tweaked on earlier, and I will continue that a little bit, is the idea that Morrigan has already chosen or spoken to those who she has decided to call upon, and they're usually survivors of traumatic events of one form or another. And I'm not talking everyday traumatic events, I'm talking usually quite awful, soul-destroying, soul-shattering events which have caused you to die a death and be reborn, and you've clawed your way back from it. And the Morrigan brings with her a sense of healing. Like, I see that you have survived this. I see that you have gotten through this. I see that you're a warrior. I admire you for this. Perhaps I was testing you and watching you this whole time and seeing how you would cope with this situation. And all those scars, all those, be they physical scars or emotional scars or, you know, metaphorical scars, they're your brands. They mark you out as mine. You are my daughter or son. You are mine. And that with it brings a deep sense of healing, because it almost doesn't give a reason for why everything awful happened. It doesn't give a purpose to everything that happened, but perhaps gives a bit of a silver lining to it. It means that there is a part of that horrific experience that you can take on, because we all carry things with us. So perhaps there is a better way of taking a chink of that with us and allowing that to be transformed, allowing it to be healed and be a part of us without killing us, basically. So it basically means we're purifying out the poison of what the horrible circumstances we have been through or are going through, and means that we attach a sense of honour to it. It's that the Morrigan has said, you know, that I am a beautiful, strong, full human being. I can see that she brings this love in because of all the terrible things that I have been through. She looks at me with pride and says, you did it, you got through it, you survived, you are a warrior. Or however you best associate yourself with an archetype with regards to your path. And I think that's really important in terms of self-love when looking at Morrigan work, because when she has called you, it's a huge responsibility, but it's the most beautiful thing in the world. And I mean, I'm biased, so, but tough, you know. It fills you with a sense of purpose and wholeness like never before. And it's never going to be an easy path, which is what we sign up for, basically. But we got it, you know, we're going to get through it. We're going to conquer. We're going to keep going. We're going to battle on. We're going to figure it out. We're going to be a better version of ourselves. And healing and self-love comes into that as a very important step along that path. You have that obligation to look after yourself, to heal yourself, to take care of yourself, and to find a way of fighting through it. Now, in some circumstances, these fights can be for life, and I've talked about this in depression videos as well, that depression is a mental condition which you will likely, if you do suffer from it, from it for life. And it's a good example of healing and self-love work through it, which is that you have a responsibility to understand what it is, a responsibility to sort of do all you can on a spiritual level, on a physical level, to cope with that illness. Make sure you're eating right, get the exercise, because exercise does help with depression if you can. And if you require that medication, if you require that help, if you require that counselling, if you require that outside hand, if you like, then you seek that out. That is your responsibility, to know yourself on a physical level as well as on a spiritual level, and know what you need and go and seek it. And it's also about learning that these fights are basically, sometimes you're not going to win with depression. Some days you're gonna stay in bed and you cry your eyes out, and it's just, that's how it is. And it's, again, your responsibility for the next day to be like, yesterday it won, today it's not going to, and getting up and fighting. And allowing yourself it. There's a really thin line, I think, a really thin line between allowing yourself what you need and excusing yourself from healing or improving or growing. And there is a tendency in modern times to go two ways with this. Like, one side of the fence is too forgiving, like oh well, if you need to do this, and there's no responsibility there. And it's very apparent in all walks of life. You know, some of the Facebook memes you see and you're just like, where's the responsibility here? Because it's up to you to take responsibility for yourself and your actions, and make sure you're getting the help you need, the healing you need, and taking the actions that you can in order to be healed. But on the other side of that, you don't want to be like really grinding yourself into the dirt, really criticizing yourself so deeply that you are hurting yourself rather than healing yourself. Because if all you are doing is basically telling yourself, you know, you're not doing enough, you're not good enough, this is not how, and rather than, you know, being a friend to yourself, then you are harming yourself just as much as the other side of the fence. And I think a lot of healing work and self-love work is about finding the middle road. There is between not driving yourself into the dirt with your self-criticism, but not allowing yourself to be, you know, lazy and not get on what you need to be doing in a proactive sense. Excuse the chair. With regards to your witchcraft or your spirituality, you know, how can I improve? What can I be doing? Which meditations can I be doing? What changes in diet and exercise can I make? Do I need to see the doctor? Do I need to see a counsellor? And so on and so forth. So I think that's really important. I don't want to get into over specifics with regards to certain spell works and certain healing things to look at, if you like, with regard, you know, crystals and things. I already have the meditation on the channel already. I already have some videos on self-love which you can look at with regards to spells. I am going to put together a couple more videos with regards to like the Avalonic side of healing, and I will do that, and we will have a relook at that through a physical, visual, spellworky style, because I think that can actually help with connecting to that energy of healing and that energy of how to bring that into your practice. I think we can definitely do a video, but I wanted to sort of talk about the concepts of healing and self-love with regards to the Morrigan first. So I think that's all the concepts that I wanted to cover, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. This video is pretty long, so yeah, and then I will look at putting a couple more videos together in the next few days about Avalonic healing and things of that nature. So that's going to be it for this video. Many blessings.